Good morning and welcome. Happy Monday. Hope you're all off to a good start. It's just beginning to get light here. Of course, the garbage truck went through quite some time ago. I was up already, but I'm sure most of the neighbors weren't, and so they got the awakening. It's kind of how it goes on a Monday on this street in Appleton. So let's start with some breath. Good morning, Abigail. Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. You're the first one popping on today. So in through the nose, out through the mouth. Good morning, Cindy. I spent about an hour breathing before I got up. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Good morning, Peggy. Welcome. Everybody's raring to go on Monday, which is good because we have some interesting stuff for today. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Anybody else stuffy with the allergy thing going on? I don't know what if it's a goldenrod or what it is, but yeah, something. So, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Good morning, Carolyn. Everybody's showing up. This is awesome. And what I like about this, again, as my perspective always is, which is the title of our conversation today, perspectives, probably ragweed. I think you're probably right. Yes. And I was wandering out through a field yesterday in glee because that was my fourth time or fifth time out there trying to find this particular place and not having had much luck. But I'd called up Diane and said, hey, you want to go for a ride? Good morning, Mel. Glad you're here. Welcome. And so together, the two of us were able to kind of figure out where this location was. So now I have the visual. Now my mind can start putting things together in the way that it likes to do. So that was pretty cool. I appreciated the shotgun rider so that we could actually look at the map and drive at the same time. Whatever it is, it's creating lots of snot, and I'm not happy about it. Let's get this over with. So, but the weather is fabulous. This week is going to be in the 70s and 80s. The 80s are getting up there a little much for me, but the 70s, rock on. So, let me tell you how we're ending up hearing what we're hearing today for the reading. And then some of the interesting bits and bops that are popping in to go along with this. Good morning, Gwen. Welcome. Glad you're here. Happy Monday. So I did my typical stand in front of the bookshelf, do the muscle testing, see which pile it was in. Good morning, Janine. Welcome. So I did left. It was weak. Middle, weak. Right, weak. Tosha Silver, weak. Sharon Ellison, weak. I'm like, what the actual heckers here? So then it popped into my head, your journal. That tested strong. And I'm like, my journal? What am I going to do with my journal? And then the idea came, well, the same thing, Bonnie, that you do with the books. Hold it in your hands, open to a page. So then I queried whether it was my current journal. No. The previous journal. Yes. And I'm like, oh, okay, which I have sitting here because it is the one in which I'm doing my list of 100 things I want to do before I die, which I'm now looking at number 46. I can cross that one off. Woohoo! But I need to get going on that. There's more to fill out. So, and I've been mulling something over in my brain since I talked to somebody on Friday, I believe it was. And my pitch to her was, this is a time, we're living in a time where we all need to be much more real. Warts and all, as my friend Deb would say. Much more real. Not displaying this glitzy facade to people on our Instagram account or TikTok or whatever it is we do, blah, blah. But the real us. Warts and all. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. I'm going to read some out of my journal. These are actually entries from May, this year May. And then I'll tell you where it led me. Because as I reread it, I'm like, I don't want to read. This is not so happy. What the hell? But as I kept going, it made sense. So let me just read some of this to you, and then I'll weave it all together for us. So, a couple more nice deep breaths. Opening to receiving these words. Whatever part of this is in your highest and best good, in divine right timing and divine right order. And I see we are up to my favorite number 8 here. All right, so you all who are here are the ones who are meant to hear this today. Let's see what you do with it. Run with it. Let's see what you do with it. So this was from, I think the date was Friday the 17th of May this year. And I turned to a page that was partway through, and so I picked that, and then the Saturday there was also some writing. So it's some of both those days. Again, everything is feeling like work. I wanted to do X, and now someone else wants me to do Y. I'm not even sure that I can do this. Where's the joy? Where's the fun? I already have a propensity to work my life away, and all this shit does nothing to rectify that imbalance. Can you tell I was in a great mood that day? Whatever. So where do I go from here? What would I like to do? And I capitalized all the letters of like. Good morning, Bonnie. Glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. Apparently you need to hear this one too. So this is called perspective, and I'm just reading some stuff out of my journal, and then I'm going to tie it all together. We'll see where we end up. So where from here? What would I like to do? Not sure. Again, it all feels laborious. It probably would do me good to get out of the house and check in with the world. Ding, 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 ding. Right? Let's see. There was one paragraph, and then I said, after that, maybe I'd just take a book outside and read. I could put my petunia basket out in the sun. Remember, this is May, when I wrote this. Something will help me feel better, less teary. Then the next day, I wrote, I have more heaps on my desk today. Yesterday was a weirdly off day. I even ended up lying down for a half an hour. I never lay down. Never. Because if I fall asleep and wake up, I feel like crap for the rest of the day. So I'm just not a napper. At least not yet. We'll see what happens when I'm 80. But not yet. So I even laid down for half an hour. It felt like it had been triggered by the negative reactions of O and J. So 2 people. Good morning, Linda. Welcome, welcome. And it was about this particular thing that a group of us had worked on. So now, at that point, I then turned it over to them. If you don't like what we created, have at it. Let's see what we get. So why did that get to me? So here I am kind of asking the questions, trying to discern why that particular day prior was so off. Because I felt judged and shamed and not worked with in a productive way that would have fostered a mindset shift that was beneficial. Now going back to it and looking at it, I definitely needed a mindset shift. It was one of those things, and my whole team needed a mindset shift, that particular team. But it was, again, that pattern that we have of things we've learned in childhood and living them forward without questioning them initially until something like this comes up where we go, oh, why do I think that way? What is that about? But the way I was approached was pretty pejorative and negative and you, and that kind of stuff, which does not foster the assessment within, right? It just makes you defensive. So then as I was working on that, I said, maybe this opens a broader topic to be addressed on all of my teams with regard to our own perspectives needing to be broadened and having tools to communicate effectively with people who disagree with us. So in that particular situation, it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity for the 2 people who were more enlightened than the rest of us to guide us, to say, hey, you guys, have you thought about it this way? This here is kind of stereotypical. It's kind of biased. Can we take a look at that? That would have been a whole lot more likely that I, in that moment, and others could have said, oh, you're right. I wonder why we went there. Because it hadn't been looked at yet. Now it was under the looking glass. We could take a peek at it, right? So I wrote, maybe this is the path of transcendence regarding more limited perspectives. Maybe I can allow this transcendence to evolve and take root despite the discomfort of how others approached it. I think I'll put that into the next several meetings, which I did, to raise awareness. Then there was some other stuff. Then, so as I was thinking about that, what I wrote in my current journal, because I had 30 minutes between when that popped in and being on here with you. So I thought, well, let's see what comes up. So today I was writing, and one of the things, it's kind of stream of consciousness stuff, right? I just sort of throw up on the page and see what happens. So one of the things I put down was, I keep wanting to write 2027 the last several times I've journaled. And I'm like, 2027, it's not even like I'm just going to the next year. I'm jumping years. What is that? The only thing I can link at the moment, we'll see what comes up with it, with 2027, is that's actually when people are supposed to be able to move into the affordable housing project. So that's the only reference I have to 2027. We'll see what else might come up. So perspective, this thing we're doing today, I'm calling perspective. And I wrote, it'll give my practical rebels a glimpse into how my mind works and how I walk myself through difficulties into a perspective shift. Now I want to talk about the new book I'm reading. Well, new to me. I think it was written in 2016. Deep Work by Cal Newport. Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. And I think I'm not that far into it, probably in page 17. But his premise is that we are all doing shallow work. By shallow work, he means responding, reacting, not so much even responding, reacting to the beeps and boops of our electronic world, right? And that we have gotten to the point where we can't even focus on something longer term. How many of us have heard the thing, if you're going to, do an ad, it needs to be 30 seconds or less because that's all the attention span of people is. And I'm like, ee. So the thing with the deep work is he's talking about the value of long stretches of unpluggedness. I'm calling it unpluggedness. Even to the point of boredom, because that's where creativity happens. So my thought was for myself, what do I want to do? I've been messing around with this idea, deep work, for a while in terms of I can see that doing the whack-a-mole approach to my life is not satisfying. Not satisfying at all. Yes, I'm crossing stuff off the to-do list, but I slipped away from prioritizing the to-do list. It's kind of like whatever's screaming at me the loudest, that's what I whack. Instead of, this is the most important thing. And I go back to the quadrants of Stephen Covey, where he's got this little foursquare thing. And you have things that are urgent and things that are not urgent, things that are important and things that are not important. And he says we waste way too much of our time on the things that are seemingly urgent, but they're not important. The email that beeps and it's useless crap. The phone that rings and it's a robocall. All that stuff that beeps and boops and bops and disrupts us, calls away our attention, and the quadrant we really need to be spending some quality time in is the not urgent, important quadrant. So that would be things like boredom time, creative time, getting your will done, the things that are really important that we blow off and blow off and blow off and blow off because there's all the beeps, whoops, and bops happening, taking our attention. So I'm looking, he's broken the book down into two parts. The first part is making his case for why this is important. And he's already talked about several of the most creative minds that we've had in our world in the last couple hundred years and how they often took off to places that didn't have electricity and didn't have the accoutrements that tend to pull our attention. Writers who leave their families for a month and go sit by the seashore and write, etc., etc. The second part of the book then is him giving us tools for how do we create this in our own lives? How do we first address that we are plugged in and wired up and we now have our brains seeking the dopamine hits of responding to the beeps, boops, and bops. How do we unplug that a bit? So what I wrote this morning for myself was, I want to do some smaller chunks. I want to do like a third of a day, 3 hours maybe, 3 or 4 hours, and just close the laptop, turn off the phone and put it away somewhere and just be. Maybe not even journaling, maybe not even reading, maybe just be. And let's see what comes up. Will I get bored? Absolutely, I'm going to get bored. Will creative things come out of that boredom? Hopefully. Hopefully. I once did a vacation. Once a year, we would go to this lovely lake, Kelly Lake, and we'd rent a farmhouse. And the kids would play in the water. It was right on a lake, Kelly Lake, obviously. Oops, hang on. And one year, I decided I wasn't taking any books. That was a weird year. A lot of creative stuff came forth, but it was a weird year. So I want you to try some of this, even a little bit of time. What if you turned your phone off for an hour? 1 hour. Could you do it? How uncomfortable would you be? Are you willing to try this with me? Let's play around with some of this. So I looked at my calendar to see when I get the first chunk of 3 hours that I could possibly do this. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. I'm so excited. Yes, if your whole work life was to deal with things as they were coming at you, we've got to shift perspective, right? We've got to shift perspective. So we could do divine feminine. I'm open to receiving. I'm open to receiving these 3 hours of solitude. Let's see what I get. Isn't this fun? Isn't this something you want to rub your hands? Good morning, Kayleen. We're going to talk about this today. I'm so excited that this unopportunity is presenting itself. How do we unplug? How do we unplug? We really need to allow our brains. How many of you remember that commercial way back when? You're of my era, so I think you'll remember it. It was for a paint store, and this chameleon who changes color with everything that's present crawls into a room with all the paint colors spread all over, and then crawls back out and is like fried crispy because there were so many changes. We may be a little bit like that as we unplug. Fried crispy from all of the input. Allow our brains to rest a bit. Is it going to be uncomfortable? I think so. Is it going to be highly rewarding? I think so. So I'd love to hear what you're willing to try with regard to this. Again, I'm committing to 3 hours on Wednesday morning to turn off all the electronics and just be. Can't wait to see what happens. Have an awesome Monday. Good morning, Holly. Glad you're here. We're just finishing up. Feel free to watch the replay because I think this is an awesome challenge we're going to have. Remember, we're capable of far more than we think we are, including perspective shifts. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.